Yes. Yes. Welcome to the Glenn Beck program. America, I think you know this, the budget is out of control. Economists are saying there's a lack of political will. You think so? The will to do the right thing. America, as the truth of our economic situation becomes clear over the next year or so, I believe the country will divide itself into two camps. The politicians and the elites who don't have the will to do the right thing or even tell you the truth, and then the rest of us, the rank and file. I think the message will be, I will sacrifice today for my children's future tomorrow. That is the will of the American people. So it's kind of half right. It's not the will of Washington. There are some economists now that say our only hope is economist Herbert Stein's law. If something can't go on forever, it will stop. Okay, I don't think that's our greatest hope. I think our greatest hope is what it always has been, the American people, ready to do the tough work. The government just needs to get the hell out of our way. Come on. Will they call today? Who knows? They are setting a pattern, though. Hello, America. I want to talk to you about a couple of things. First, we need to stop living in a fantasy land. America has already fundamentally changed. It started changing a long time ago, long before Barack Obama came on the scene. And we're not going back to where it was in the beginning unless we first admit, hello, Houston, we got a problem. And it's really all based on one word, debt. Before I show you the news of the day, I want to remind you of something that Thomas Jefferson wrote to James Madison in 1789. He said, "Then I say, the earth belongs to each of these generations during its course, fully and in its own right. The second generation receives it clear of the debts and encumbrances of the first, the third of the second, and so on. For if the first could charge it with debt, then the earth would belong to the dead and not the living generation. Then no generation can contract debts greater than may be paid during the course of its own existence." We're like a million miles away from that, aren't we? Let me show you again the debt clock. In fact, let me go over here because I think I have a bigger clock over here. When I saw this the other day, I was actually, for a minute, I was just, oh, let me be happy for a minute. Show me the debt clock. Here it is. Here's our national debt. Bad news. But look at these. Anything jump out at you? Watch these numbers for a second. You notice this? The numbers are actually going down. For a minute there, that's across the whole line. This is personal debt. Our personal debt is shrinking. Mortgages shrinking. Consumer debt, credit card. I saw that and I'm like, common sense is alive. No, don't get happy. I thought for a minute people actually were listening and getting out of debt and stop spending money they don't have on credit. Unfortunately, I did some checking, and that's not it. People aren't paying off their debts. Well, not in these numbers at least. They're defaulting on them. When you default on your credit card loan, the money, okay, where's credit card? Here. Or let's do mortgage debt is even a better one. You default here, the money goes back up to, show me the front page again, the top line, this one, the U.S. national debt. Same thing with the mortgages. Oh boy, this is not going to be pretty. Let me show you a couple of charts here. If we were living in happy land, where are we? Thank you, mortgage debt. No, go back to the charts, please, now. If we were living in happy land, here's residential mortgage loans that are outstanding. You'd be like, oh my gosh, look at everybody's getting out of debt. Yeah. Reverse this and put it over here. The default line. The blue line is the distressed mortgages, the people that are 60 days late or more. And these are the defaults. These are the ones the bank's like, okay, I think we got to take the keys of your house away. If we were normal times, this would be happy. But couple these two and it shows how bad it is. However, the banks are foreclosing on so many mortgages and so many people are delinquent, they aren't paying. But if I may be the grim reaper today, this chart doesn't really show you the whole thing because the banks are not foreclosing on as many mortgages as they should be. Back to the debt clock. Show me the mortgage debt. Here it is. This number should actually be going down much, much faster. But the banks aren't foreclosing on people. And as much as people say, oh my gosh, they kicked me out, they're not taking away credit cards as fast as they should either. Because when they do, they have to charge it off. They have to write it off. Which means if the bank says, oh, we now have Billy's house too, that means they have to report it to the government, which means they need more money in their reserve. And they'd be telling not only the clients, bank's in trouble, but also they're telling the government that. Okay, they are motivated. They are motivated because of Big Brother standing over their shoulder saying, don't foreclose on these people. Actually, let me say it more like Big Brother. Yeah, it sounds just like Barney Frank. Don't you dare foreclose on these people or we'll come after you. That is the attitude that the banks are now dealing with from Washington and have over a long period of time. It was the problem in the first place. The same thing happened with credit card debt. So now what? Look at this. Here's credit card debt. Here's the foreclosure. We keep hearing from progressives that federal debt is not like personal debt. Oh, no, federal debt's much bigger. You can't possibly comprehend it. Really? It works the same way. Federal debt, they say, we have to spend our way out of recession. I'm sorry, but this kind of debt, it doesn't work. Listen to Congressman Clyburn. This is what he just said. I think it was yesterday.
We are not going to save our way out of this recession. We've got to spend our way out of this recession.
Yeah. Not with a debt this big. Doesn't make any sense. This is what TARP was all about. You remember that $700 billion that took your breath away? That was just a down payment. Where is that on this government bailouts? That was a down payment. Government bailouts since 2008, 2010. This is, by the way, 100,000, million, billion, trillion. It's a slush fund now. They can draw on that as long as they want, as much as they want. Our problem is we haven't learned from history. You know, there was a huge bailout. Come on, I got to sit down. I'm tired. There was a huge bailout that most people were unaware of that happened over 100 years ago. It happened in 1895. There was a massive financial problem, and like this one, only answer was a bailout, they said. Except it wasn't the government bailing out big evil corporations. In 1895, it was big evil corporations bailing out the U.S. government. See, we were on the gold standard. You run out of money, you run out of money. It's kind of like a state now. Now, we ran out of money mainly because of the Sherman Silver Purchase Act, which really isn't worth getting into. But the U.S. Treasury reserves had shrunk to under $100 million. The federal government was just about broke. So, off to the rescue comes this man. George, you used to call me a disgruntled, angry old man. Kind of like Mr. Potter, except it's J.P. Morgan. His group stepped in to replenish the United States government with $62 million in gold reserves to shore up the government. Morgan had already bailed out the U.S. Army payroll in 1877, and then a third time he bailed everybody out in 1907. Well, that's when he bailed out Wall Street, and the sentiment then was, you know what? I think Mr. Potter's trying to buy everything up, and we're beholden to these guys because they keep bailing us out. Progressives at the time made this populist case that we should never, ever be beholden to somebody like that. You can't owe somebody like that so much money, you give them too much control. Got the theory? Fast forward now 100 years. J.P. Morgan's bank, show me J.P. Morgan Chase. Now we've bailed J.P. Morgan Chase out. The U.S. government did. And now the government is vilifying J.P. Morgan Chase. You see, the progressives learned the lesson. J.P. Morgan Chase forgot it. And the rest of us stood by with our drool cups going, wow, we didn't see this coming. Just like it was bad for the government to be owned by J.P. Morgan, it is equally as bad to have the government own J.P. Morgan Chase. The bank owning the government, what would happen? We were afraid the bank would tell the government what to do, and they did. Just like the government is now telling banks what to do. Except this is only part of the story. This is the part of the story the dopes in most of the media channels will tell you, and they'll go, yep, that's it. So we just hate the bank.